part of the book which has recently come out. I'm really ashamed this was easier because it has taken almost a decade for it to come out. So in a way what I've been reading out is in a way new to me as well, because it's almost 10 years back. Of course it has gone to revision, etc. Yeah, the title as declared is Islam and Indian Nationalism in Retrospect. So what I will be trying to look at is primarily around one text and an event. The text is Sheikh Zainuddin's Tufaq al-Mujahideen, which was written in Malabar in Arabic in 1583. And then the Mambram Kangals. The event is basically the murder of British collector H.V. Conley in 1855. I could be wrong, but it's 1855. So a text and an event separated by 272 years. The text is basically a 16th century epic, so-called epic, which is basically a call for jihad. There's no mistake about it. It is a call for jihad against the Portuguese, particularly against the Portuguese. And those 270 years it took for the jihad actually to be committed. Even though it was an immediate call against the Portuguese, the jihad happened after 272 years against the British administrator. So this text and the event separated by 272 years, in a way opens a window into the Malabar of that time. Different kind of imaginary, different kind of imagination, different kind of conception of region, nation, national, etc. So this is basically the title, the Islam and Indian Nationalism in Retrospect. To look back at certain things around that time and see what can be learned from that for our contemporary times. In the wake of the 1857 rebellion and the severe and systematic colonial repression that targeted all potentially subversive communities in North Indian subcontinent, a 52-year-old royalist traveled to London to find out what was wrong with the world. By and large, this is what David Elwood's book also talks about. Sayyid Ahmad Khan belonged to a well-to-do aristocratic family and might have thought of himself as belonging to an international fraternity that shared progressive ideas of government. But the colonial intervention had already substituted Urdu for Persian in 1835, a move touted as having rendered a whole nation of Muslims illiterate. Yeah, for the sake of time, I will be sort of skipping some parts of what I have written down. And please also probably can come up with a discussion, because this is a part of the second chapter in a series of 8 chapters. So it probably refers to the previous chapter as well as later chapter. So I don't know how much it is actually all out there in the modern present. The flip side of this move would be that it must have entered another nation. It must have made another nation in all the senses literate. New centers of power along diverse ideas of nationalism that happily married at convenience and lived a turbulent life, working with such imponderables as the secular, the communal, the feudal, the capitalistic, the social, the cultural, the political, the public, the private, and the like, adopting strategies of antagonism and collaboration as and when required, were springing up. The London visit gave Sayyid Ahmad Khan a rude shock and a new calling. What shocked Sayyid Ahmad Khan most was that he could be represented, enumerated, as belonging to peoples with whom he had nothing in common, by the same people with whom he thought he had many things in common. He was a royalist. He thought he shared more things with the British than with actual natives of India. Sayyid Ahmad Khan left the Indian continent in 1869 with the hope that he would be able to prepare a refutation of British attacks on the history of Islam by using the wide range of sources available to his adversaries. He was not planning to come back, but going over the People of India, a publication of the India office, and reading the English description through his son's translations, Sayyid Ahmad Khan was shocked to find photographs of nearly naked men or people in unfamiliar dress, featured as representative of Indians, Hindus, Muslims, etc. The third volume describes an Aligarh district landlord as having, quoting from the people of India, features that are peculiarly Mohammedan, of the Central Asian type, and while they vouch for the purity of his descent, exemplify in a strong manner the obstinacy, sensuality, ignorance, and bigotry of his class. It is hardly possible perhaps to conceive features more essentially repulsive. Sayyid Ahmad Khan's exposure to the other's representation had a telling effect. He decided to come back and live among the natives. He started various English medium schools, much to the chagrin of ardent and hardened nationalists, whether of religious or secular credentials. He also established the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College at Aligarh in 1875, which in 1920 became the Aligarh Muslim University, which is also a center of controversy right now. In retrospect and against the grain of the standard practice of reducing Islam in India to pan-Islamic separatism, and then tracing the beginnings of a teleological narrative of this mode, I argue that pan-Islamic interest can be read in terms other than that of separatism. Even after the collapse of the Khilafat agitation, which lost wind in the Turkish National Assembly at Ankara, announced on 21 November 1922 that the Khilafat and the Sultanate were two different offices, not necessarily vested in one person, there was hardly any serious thought of a different nation. An examination of the relationship between Islam and modernity in the Indian subcontinent, as exemplified by the initiatives of two of the four main centers of Islamic thought and culture, the Darul Uloom Deoband and the Aligarh Muslim University, would substantiate such an argument. In the first chapter, there was already a discussion about an autobiography by Maulana Muhammad Ali, republished as My Life a Fragment, the unfinished autobiography of Maulana Muhammad Ali, in which Muhammad Ali makes this argument that he belongs to two circles of equal size. And he says in one circle is written Islam, and in the other circle is written India, and he cannot leave neither. And he actually says that says to his Hindu brethren to stop treating Islam as an impossible factor. These are quotations from his own autobiography. To stop treating Islam as an impossible factor in the scheme of India's future, like a prisoner in the dock. So he emphatically says that I belong to two circles and I will not leave neither of these circles. The first chapter also has a little extensive discussion about a debate, a 1938 debate. Yeah, the Maulana Muhammad Ali's autobiography was penned around early 1930s. We don't know exactly when it was written, probably late 1920s or early 1930s. It was published much later. Whereas the Maulana Madani and Muhammad Iqbal debate is of 1938, where Madani makes an argument for a notion of a composite nationalism using arguments of Prophet Muhammad, that Prophet Muhammad actually had alliances with Jews for political whatever reasons, and he argues against Iqbal's notion of a territorial nationalism. So the main thrust of Maulana Madani is to say that this allows Muslims to live as minorities in in non-Islamic countries. So it necessarily does not tie up with the Islamic nation. In Rushdie's 1995 novel, Shame, the narrator speaks about Pakistan as a failure of the dreaming mind, as just insufficiently imagined. Even though this has been questioned by a recent book by Dulapila Walia, titled Creating the New Medina, which actually argues that Pakistan was not an accident. It was not put together in 7 years. It was actually had a history of negotiations, discussions, particularly in Urdu and Arabic press. But Rushdie's character says that probably Pakistan was failed because it was just put together suddenly, not sufficiently imagined. Is it possible then to think that probably there's an inverse to this, that India was just excessively imagined? While colonial interpretations and nationalist reactions to various multi-layered narratives of the 1026 raid of the Somnath temple may have had stark effects on North Indian Hindu-Muslim nationalist imaginings, so much that it interrupted Sayyid Ahmad Khan's journey. It may also be productive to counterpoint this with histories of Indian Muslims who stayed put. With such an orientation, let's look at a text and an event from Malabar that is separated by 272 years. The text is a 16th century epic written in Arabic in Malabar in 1583, exhorting Malabar Muslims to jihad against the Portuguese. And the event can be culled from narratives about the murder of British Malabar district collector, H.P. Connolly in 1855, in order to gesture towards the predicaments and preoccupations of Malabar Muslims. My brief discussion of the text, which is Tuhafat al-Mujahideen by Sheikh Zainuddin Makhdoom, and the circumstances of Connolly's murder, attesting to the influence of the Mangaram Tangals, will hopefully demonstrate that Pan-Islamism is not to be necessarily equated with separatism. In fact, it could be argued that Pan-Islamism actually counters separatist tendencies, unless accentuated by socio-political and other exacerbating circumstances. I can see that I am running out of time, so I just on second page now. According to Kerala Webster's timeline history, the first mention of Kerala occurs on one of the rock inscriptions left by Ashoka, the Mauryan emperor, during the 3rd century BC. It was then an independent kingdom known as Keralaputra, which was ruled by the powerful Chera dynasty until the 5th century AD. The history of Kerala from the 6th to 8th century AD is obscure. Leaving aside the vicissitudes of the Chera and Chola dynasties, we start hearing about Malabar, often Manibar, Malibar. There are various pronunciations and spellings for this name, depending on different languages as well. From around the 8th century onwards, from various Arabic sources, while St. Thomas is acknowledged to have reached present-day Kerala around 52 CE, and Jews in 69 CE, Arab trade with many parts of present-day India is supposed to have started much before, and Islam is acknowledged to have reached Kerala during the time of the Prophet. According to that part, so the story basically revolves around a Perumal who is supposed to have converted. According to received Islamic tradition, the Perumal became a convert and allowed the construction of mosques in various places. There are various other regional tribal chairman Perumal legends. This is not a unique legend. There is an Islamic legend. There are also tribal legends about the same Perumal. Since very likely the name is honorary to a dynasty which ruled Kerala for around 12 to 20 years. However, it is generally agreed upon that the first mosque in the Indian subcontinent was thus built at Kodungalur around 629 CE, and underlines the fact that Islam was a powerful presence, by and large a largely peaceful presence in Malabar from then on. However, the arrival of the Portuguese could drastically change the situation. The Portuguese held sway over the seas from 1498 to 1663, and this is the time when Makhdoom writes his text, when they were superseded by the Dutch after 1663, till the British established supremacy over the region later. The background of Makhdoom's text is of course Vasco da Gama's 1498 journey, whereby the Portuguese king was induced to order India to be discovered, and the ensuing violent conflicts along the Indian coastline from Gujarat to Kerala. Makhdoom's text testifies to the manner in which Portuguese dealt with the natives, and thus is a testament of resistance. The text is divided into 4 sections. Just briefly describe the text. The first section is called History of the Advent and Spread of Islam in Malabar. Second is called Certain Strange Customs of the Hindus in Malabar. The fourth section is further divided into 14 sub-chapters, which detail the arrival of Portuguese, their shameful deeds, the submarine Portuguese rivalry, and the 5 treaties between them, the deeds of the valiant Maracas, and the unsuccessful and brief episode whereby the Turkish Sultan Bahadur Shah tried to establish control over Gujarat. This is a different cosmopolis which is emerging. My interest in this text, however, is both parachronic as well as prochronic, in the sense of being beside as well as before time. It will be impossible to continue to ignore the fact that the text was written in Malabar but in Arabic, and first published in Arabic in Lisbon, and was widely translated into many foreign as well as Indian languages, or that without doubt its message was orally transmitted among Malabar Muslims. Almost immediately, the translation details are not actually available, and must probably the topic of various Friday sermons, or indeed that it raises serious questions for our times. How does one try to read and understand a 1583 document that is written to inspire, exhort native Malabar Muslims to resist the Portuguese for their atrocities through jihad during the 85 years of Sheikh Zainuddin Makhdoom's life? Incidentally, he was born in the year Vasco da Gama landed at Kapat Beach in Malabar, and died the same year he wrote Tuhafat al-Mujahideen. Gama's journey was of course occasioned by the prevailing European situation. According to Mamdani, widely familiar, the year 1492 stands as a gateway to two related endeavors. One, the onset of the European Renaissance and the birth of political modernity. It is also the year Christopher Columbus set sail for the New World, and the year the armies of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella conquered the city of Grenada, then seen as the last Muslim stronghold in Western Christendom. I skipped the next paragraph because this basically recounts Hamdani's argument about political modernity and the birth of modern states and the imperial expansion, to say that the victims of such an imperial expansion and the consolidation of a nation state. In marked contrast to the Europeans, for whom trade was often synonymous with plunder, maritime trade had been going on relatively peacefully, according to Greek and Latin sources from the 6th century BC, and according to Chinese sources from the 1st century onwards. And Arab sources indicate that travel and trade was flourishing from at least the 7th century. Moreover, from 1899 CE, Hadrami migrants from the Hadramaut region of Yemen, belonging to Shafi persuasion of Sunnis, are known to have migrated and settled in various places, particularly in Syria and Yemen, and in many places in the African continent, and from 1220 CE onwards in places like Bijapur, Surat, Ahmedabad, Bharuch, Hyderabad, Delhi, Baroda, Malabar, and Bengal in the Indian subcontinent, apart of course from Java, Sumatra, Malaya, Borneo and Philippines. Thus, Sheikh Zainuddin Makhdoom's parents are known to have migrated from Yemen to Pannani in Malabar in the early 15th century, while Mamram Tangal Sayyid Alawi, the first Mamram Tangal, migrated from Yemen again to Mamram in Malabar in 1768. So in a sense they are foreigners, they are not, they are Arabs, they are from Yemen. Tufat al-Mujahideen, a historical epic of the 16th century, was written by Sheikh Zainuddin Makhdoom, also known as the Second, in Arabic around 1583. This text, as described by publishers, probably played a major role in shaping the Malabar Mapla revolts against colonial invasions. And this text definitely was also taught as part of a syllabi at the Pannani Mosque, which was built by Makhdoom's grandfather around 1590, and where Makhdoom himself studied and later taught for 36 years after pursuing higher education in Makkah for 10 years. Interestingly, the book is dedicated to Ali Adil Shah I, who is actually from the, who is not a Sunni, he is a Sufi. There are a lot of things about which I do, which I sort of skip over and read. One of the translators, Z. Hamza, actually says that, this is also something which I thought I'll bring up, that he talks about this notion of jihad. The concept of jihad is projected not to dethrone the samurai or to capture his territories, but to seek a peaceful life for the Islamic community in a non-Islamic country. However, Hamza, the translator, comments that one cannot translate jihad precisely as a military campaign or holy war. Rather, the word usually, Hamza was a serious Arabic scholar, which I am not, so I had to go by his words. And he represented, he was a representative in the UN Congress much long time back. So he was an established scholar of Persian Arabic, so meaning that we can take his word. So Hamza comments that one cannot translate jihad precisely as military campaign or holy war. Rather, the word usually used for war in Arabic is harab, and the ijtihad and jihad are from the common root jahada, and hence the latter should be understood as an exclusive technical term of Islam and could mean the struggle taking place in one's soul and mind, a conflict between two opposite forces or tendencies, which could also be ideological. We must remember here that Makhdoom does not exhort Muslims from Malabar to fight against Samoans. In fact, the text recounts the peaceful existence of natives and Arabs for a long period. Moreover, Muslim migrants who settle down are known to adapt to new conditions, as amply demonstrated in North Indian as well as South Indian context. I am making a jump. In fact, today there seems to be a demand and maybe a desire among Muslims as well to disown the present-day terrorists, for Muslims to proclaim that terrorists are not Muslims. In fact, Vilayatullah, in the short biography of Baghdad, given the text goes one step further. I'm quoting from this short biography, where he says, the success of Malabar Muslims, a negligible force in comparison, in their struggles against the Portuguese, the foremost imperialistic power of the time, will be inspiring to the present generation. Further, it establishes once and for all the fact that Islam and the Muslim community have always been considered an obstacle to the imperialistic ambitions of all times. The Portuguese and the British in the past, or the US and its allies in the modern times. Let me now turn to the event which I mentioned, the inhuman murder of Connolly, who was stabbed really inhumanly about 27 times in the presence of his wife by three Muslims, three Mapulas. Details of the event that can be gathered from the administrative records are as follows. In August 1855, two prisoners escaped while doing penal labor in Calicut. After hiding out in the homes of friends and relatives and offering prayers at various mosques, particularly the shrine of Sheikh Alavitangal of Mamram Tangal, accompanied by another person, they reached a house near Connolly's residence in September 1855. So almost like a kind of semi-pilgrimage where they visit all the shrines, visit our relatives, friends, etc. The next night between 8 and 9 p.m., they silently entered Connolly's residence. He was reclining on a sofa with his wife sitting opposite. The small lamp did not help Mrs. Connolly to see the assailants as they stabbed Connolly from behind. As the lamp fell down, Connolly was stabbed repeatedly, so much that his left hand was almost severed. Mrs. Connolly's cries did not attract any servants. But as the assassins fled, they attacked and cut off 4 fingers of a servant who accidentally saw them. Thereafter, they moved from place to place till they chanced upon a group of Muslims who were not followers of Mamram Tangal and who tried to apprehend them. Firing twice using a gun they had snatched from a queue, they fled into a nearby house. Towards evening, a police party and the military division surrounded the house. In the ensuing battle, all 3 were killed, along with a European soldier. The bodies of the rebels were thereafter publicly exhibited, hung from an iron bar, and then burned publicly in October 1855, and ashes buried inside the prison to forestall local veneration and worship. As a result of a government inquiry, 24 cases were filed and 164 people, including 14 women and a boy, examined. Of the 164, 36 were unconditionally released. The rest were sentenced to varying terms of imprisonment and exile. The colonial government also imposed mass fines on whole villages. So, on 719 people belonging to 9 villages, thereby severely impoverishing them and fomenting further resentment. In fact, the colonial understanding seemed to be saying that the murder of H.V. Connolly must have been because these 2 Mapulas who were arrested and imprisoned resented the fact that they were arrested. But the biographers of the Tangals actually put forward a different argument. They argue that the exile of the Mamram Saint Fazal Tangal, the second Tangal, there were 2 Tangals, to be clear. I thought most of people will already know this. The first Tangal reached from Yemen to Malabar when he was very young, probably 19 or something, comes later. And he died in Malabar. He also was instrumental in opposing all kind of oppression, whether it's from Hindu landlords or British overlords. They thought of exiling him many times but refrained because by the time some rebellions took place, he was almost 90 years old. So various reasons, lack of firm evidence, they did not do anything with him. But after his death, his son took over as the next second Mamram Tangal. And he was exiled at the age of 26. Young 26 years, he was exiled. And briefly, what I'm going to read out is that part. He was exiled. In fact, Connolly is supposed to use a strategy whereby he told the Tangal that you better go out. You better first speak against all the kind of things your father did. Failing which you exile yourself. And he refused. He volunteered to clarify the matters to these people. And finally, what the British effected was that they sent out a rumor, spread it out that he exiled himself. And the second Tangal did not oppose it because he thought that if that news did not spread, people will oppose it and more Mapulas will be arrested, probably killed. So in order to avoid that, he left in a sort of secret event. Mamram Saint Tangal, now I'll just read out a little bit about the 2 Tangals. The first Tangal migrated from South Yemen and settled down at Mamram in Malabar in 1768. well versed in religious texts and attributed to be the prophet's descendant, he soon became a respected figure known as Mamram Tangal. Apart from establishing mosques, which also became centers of education and community development, he is reputed to have been a soft-spoken person who endeared himself to peoples of all religions. He advocated purity of religious life and opposed caste practices. One of the biographers note that his was a politics of dissidence, in that he refused to bow down to power and always urged people to oppose impositions of any nature. In fact, the story is that he had to leave Yemen because he opposed the king there. So he had to leave that place, he had to actually run away because he opposed the king. He doesn't go along with power of any kind. Religion was not a vehicle of expressing his political antipathy. Rather, his politics originated from his religious fervor. For example, an incident celebrated to the Cherur Padapata, the ballad of the Cherur battle, which was written in Arabic Malayalam, recounts how 3 men and 3 women, influenced by a fatwa issued by Tangal against inhuman treatment of the lower caste, had embraced Islam to gain self-respect. When one of the converts, a maidservant of the village official, appeared before him, when one of the converts, a maidservant, appeared before the village official wearing a blouse, the village official tore it off in anger, as lower castes were not then supposed to wear a cloak, which is supposed to have led to the Cherur revolt in 1843, in which 125 accused were deported to Andaman. Sayyid Alavi Tangal, as is customary, was against all manifestations of authority and power, and is said to have given his sanction and blessing to many revolts, especially those in 1870 and 1842. The British contemplated his arrest and deportation on many occasions, but resisted not only because there was no direct evidence, and he was also in his 60s and 90s during these particular revolts, and also because they feared a general uprising of the people. On his demise in 1844, at the age of 94, his only son, Sayyid Fazal, or Fadal as it is pronounced, became the next Mamram Tangal. Mamram Sayyid Fadal or Fazal Tangal, also endearingly known as Bukoya Tangal, followed in the footsteps of his illustrious father, and was outspoken in his views against colonial occupation and mistreatment of Indians, particularly Malabar Muslims. Since his arrest or deportation would also create a huge uproar, it is understood that Connolly asked him to either publicly disavow anti and landlord and overlord attitude or leave India. Sayyid Fazal's offer to correct any misunderstanding among people about his views was rejected by Connolly, and a deportation order was issued on 12th February 1852. However, it is reported that Connolly wanted people to believe that Sayyid Fazal was voluntarily espousing exile. Sayyid Fazal's desire to avoid the arrest and death of many more of his followers played into Connolly's hand, and he, along with 57 followers, so huge group, he and 57 followers and family, decided to temporarily leave for Saudi Arabia in secret. Still, the news leaked out, and it is reported that thousands of people gathered in front of his house, and a crowd of 8,000 is reported to have followed him all the way from Mamram to Calicut, the place of the port. It was a long distance. Reportedly, the truth that Sayyid Fazal was actually forced into exile by Connolly also slowly leaked out, causing widespread anger and outrage, leading to Connolly's murder. It is quite possible that news of how Bukoy Tangal's numerous requests for permission to return to Malabar was repeatedly thwarted by the colonial administration, and may have also fueled the hatred towards Connolly. So the deportation happens in 1852, the murder happens in 1855. So a lot of things, you can imagine this period of 3-year period. Mamram Sayyid Fazal Bukoy Tangal died in his childhood and was buried near the grave of Sultan Muhammad Khan, near the grave of the Sultan. You can see the honor which is accorded to him. In fact, I am told that his grave bears the epithet by which he was known abroad, the Balabari. Nor did his family members ever return to India. In fact, when one of his descendants landed at Calicut to seek permission in person in February 1934, he was threatened with arrest and was asked to leave immediately. And even now, none of his family members are allowed to return to India. Mamram Sayyid Alavi Tangal, who migrated from Yemen and spent the last 77 years of his life in Malabar, and his son Mamram Sayyid Fazal Bukoy Tangal, who was deported from Malabar at the age of 28. Yeah, I think there are 2 days which clash. So some people say 26, some people say 28. Anyway, very young age, and spent the last 48 years of his exile in Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, yearning to return to Malabar are counter-examples of pan-Islamism being a hotbed of separatism and worldview. Terms like jihad or Islamic territory, etc., etc., are parts of a trans-historical worldview. They belong to an elaborate political theological vocabulary in which jurists, men of religious learning, and reformers debated and polemicized in response to varying circumstances. It is significant that Maktoum connects his call for jihad with an ancient custom of Kerala. So this is connected with the Prophet or what happened in Arabia. He talks about Kerala. He talks about Chave Pada, namely the Chave Pada or Chave Pada, the suicide squad, associated with the Mamamkar festival, a massive 28-day fair conducted every 12 years. The last was supposedly conducted in 1755. It's an age-old tradition. And culminating in a suicidal bid by a group of Naya warriors of a rival king to assassinate the well-guarded Samari. It is even more significant that the Mamluk Tangal's initiatives were kept alive in Malabar, as in the examples of Sayyid Makti Tangal, who advocated women's education as well as interest upon Malabar Muslims to adopt Malayalam as their language, as well as Wakam Abdul Qadir Maulavi. There are a list of educationalists and reformers who followed Mamluk Tangal well into modern times. Such educational initiatives were later continued by community leaders through socio-cultural movements, and the success can be gauged by a near 100% literacy, even though there are doubts about this claim. A near 100% literacy claimed by the state in 1991, with Kerala Muslim men-women ratio of 85 and 89% respectively. From a community just basically peasant to achieve literacy among women of 85% and men of 89%. It's remarkable. At a time when modern nations developed as well as developing are resorting to more and more undemocratic and totalitarian practices in the name of democracy, we need to rethink categories sanctioned by our secular model in order to investigate, if not validate, actually believed computer informations that were delegitimized by Indian secular nationalism, which needs to probably make three moves: that of recognizing the language of religion as valid, the community as a legitimate site of politics, and looking for new strategies of representations. Some of you would have recognized that quotation from Pandian. In a play of contextual inconsistency, a perennial critique of and mobilization against forms of power. In contemporary times, we are again brought to face the possibility that the spectrality of Islam is constructed in order to blunt the Dalit critique of Brahminical Hinduism. Ambedkar's statement that a caste has no feeling that is affiliated to other castes except when there is a Hindu-Muslim riot makes one wonder about the bogie of the Muslim, a bogus Indian, serving the nation by haunting it. It has been developed in later chapters, so I won't go into it. An early instance of this would have been Gandhi's opposition to separate electorates for the lower caste, which according to Beverly Nichols, quoting from Beverly Nichols, who says that Gandhi fiercely opposed a scheme of separate electorates. Give the untouchable separate electorates, he cried, and you only perpetuate their status for all time. It is a pure argument, and those who are not bemused by Mahatma's charm consider it as a phony one. They suspected that Gandhi was a little afraid that 60 million untouchables might join up with the 100 million Muslims, as they nearly did, and challenge the dictatorship of the 180 million Orthodox Hindus. Maybe today we can take heart from the fact that such an alliance seems to be on the cards again. And the task before us is to retrace a history of Indian Muslims, of their local alliances and transnational affiliations, which would allow a critical engagement with contemporary realities without being cowed down or forced to pose a counter-belligerence. From the examples of Sheikh Zainuddin Maktoum's call for jihad, of the two Mamram Tangal's proto or post-national lives, and Sayyid Ahmad Khan's return to Islam, return to India because of Islam, and with the read in conjunction with Maulana Muhammad Ali's espousal of two circles of equal size and Maulana Madani's composite nationalism, it can be gathered that the Islamic cosmopolis, a universal imaginary of a larger human community, then as well as now, figures as an enabling feature as it has helped Islamic thinkers to engage with questions of class, caste and community in various local and national contexts in the Indian subcontinent. Yeah, I'll stop there. Thank you.